is I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we are fired up about music. Now, for those of you who know me, you know I love country music. So I have an artist on today that not only does country music, but he does it quite well. His name is Richard-Lynch. He's from Waynesville, Ohio, and he has compiled a long list of country hits and chart toppers in the world of traditional country music. His new Music Weekly AM/FM country chart, the Indie World Country Record Report, and spent an incredible 32 weeks atop the Roots Music Report True Country Top charts. Now, his next 4 singles also topped the country airplay charts, including a duet with Grammy Award winner Rhonda Vincent. Now, Richard's single, Country Music Isn't Country Anymore, went top 25 on the iTunes Canada sales chart. His last single, Pray on the Radio, received Christian radio airplay and charting, also reaching the U.S. iTunes single sales chart. Now, Richard has appeared on WSM Radio Nashville, RFD TV, Fox TV, and countless other media outlets. Richard is a member of the Ohio Country Music Hall of Fame, the Independent Country Music Hall of Fame, and he is a Billboard Magazine Emerging Artist. He's also the host of Traditionally Lynch, airing on TV and radio, and he's the founder of Love Tattoo Foundation for veterans. So, you know what I'm going to say. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee, get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Richard. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, good morning, Dr. Angela. It's such a blast to be with you.
I am so glad that you were able to stop by and give us a few minutes today. I know that you have a current project that is out. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, this is our 4th nationally released album, studio album that we're excited about. It's really doing well for us around the country and around the world, actually. The title of the new album is Think I'll Carry It On. And I'm very, very proud of it, more so than any of them, because I wrote or co-wrote all 12 songs on this new album. And, you know, to be in any recording project is great, but to say that, you know, I wrote these, that's even more gratifying, I guess you might say. And, you know, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. Think I'll Carry It On is making reference to the fact that I'm keeping and doing my best to preserve real traditional country music. So if you hear the album, it'll make perfect sense to you.
Now, for those of you who perhaps don't realize that you have been on the show before, because like I said, I'm a huge country fan, so I love spending time with those who want to keep real music alive. And by real music, I mean, you know, real instruments playing, and you're able to share your passion in the form of music. What made you decide that music and country music was going to be your outlet, the way that you would share your life with the world?
Well, I kind of grew up in a country music household. My dad was an incredible singer, entertainer, and at a young age, I can remember I would get up in the morning and Dad would be drinking his coffee and at the kitchen table, and that old rounded top radio would be playing there in the kitchen and listening to, you know, great country songs of the day. And I mentioned my dad was a great entertainer. At the ripe old age of 8 years old, I got to go see my dad perform for the first time, and he was playing with a guy by the name of Porter Wagner. Now here's this guy, my dad, playing with this guy that I watch on TV every Saturday night, and I'm all impressed. You know, I think, man, my dad must be something. And so I'll never forget it. Dad had played, you know, a half hour or so into his show, and he looked down to the stage and pointed to me and my mom and said, "Richard, get up here on the stage and sing one with me." So at the age of 8 years old, I did an old Buck Owens song. I got a tiger by the tail. And as you might imagine, an 8-year-old kid, it went over pretty well. So I was bit pretty early by the country music bug, you might say.
I tell you. Now, I know that someone out there may be saying, well, country music, I just want you to think about whatever type of music that you love and that time that you heard that song that changed your life. That's the same experience. Now, I tell you, I truly am a fan, so I know what you mean. I was just talking to my son the other day, and I asked him, I said, do you think that you would listen to country music if I didn't listen to it? And he said, you know what, Mom, I think I would have gotten around to it, just not as soon or as quick, because you play songs that really pull you in, some traditional stuff, some that's a little maybe more pop or country rock. He says you listen to a little bit of everything, and good music is good music, regardless of the genre. So I can understand that. Now, did you find that getting into the music business was difficult? Like, did it take longer than you thought, or was it pretty much a smooth transition for you?
Well, becoming successful and becoming, to where we're doing national and international, events has been a long, hard road. But the truth of the matter is, anything worth doing is worth paying your dues. I mean, had I had some success, a lot of major success at a younger age, chances are, you wouldn't appreciate it or necessarily, who knows how it would have turned out. All I can tell you is I've been playing for a long time. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate. I've got a beautiful wife that supports and promotes everything I do. That's really what's important. It's taken quite a while to achieve where we're at now, but it just, I stayed with a heavy perseverance, and I didn't take no for an answer, and we just keep trudging along and making our own success, and I'm glad we did.
Absolutely. And we thanks so much for mentioning your wife, because sometimes I think we take for granted the spouses that support the artist that we all love. It's like, well, I'm their number one fan, and it's like, well, you might be their number two because their spouse is probably their number one fan. with all that they have to do, and the hugs and kisses and the phone calls and the, not only working that table and passing out, selling CDs and all those types of things, but just the love and support that they give to the artists when they're out on the road. So, hoo-ha, wifey, good job for being that number one fan. Now,
no doubt.
Right? And so speaking of being out and about, what advice do you have for those new artists that are thinking about hitting the road and going on tour and doing all of those things that artists have to do when they're not in studio?
Well, I'll give them some advice that I wish I would have had at a young age, is surround yourself with people that support and promote and believe in you. You can find things and you can have great musicians, but they aren't necessarily there for you. And so, don't settle for, this. Make sure that whoever you're traveling with, whoever you're, out here doing this business with, that they believe in you and support what you do. Ultimately, you're going to end up not having those folks in the long run anyhow. So just don't settle for somebody, that's really talented. I'd rather have someone of less talent and great, personal, where you get along and great response personally than anybody that because eventually that talent will come through. And just one of those things where just always surround yourself with the best people that promote you as much as you possibly can.
Right. You are so true. So true about that really and truly is important. Now, for someone who says, I can't decide if I want to simply perform, that's my favorite part, or if writing songs is my favorite part, Is it okay to have a preference of one over the other, or should you try to kind of hone your skills and make sure that not only are you a good songwriter, but you're also a great performer?
Well, I would say that would be to the individual. I know a lot of fantastic singers that's not very well, versed in songwriting.
Gotcha.
And vice versa. I know some great songwriters that really can't, deliver on the vocal aspect of things. But, it's something that's a personal preference. If you want to be a songwriter, and you haven't wrote any songs, all the way you can do is just get out there and keep writing, and every so often you'll get better. And same way with a singer. If you want to be a singer, you got to get out there and learn how to hone your skills and learn how to work that audience. So, either one is very doable for the other, but they just got to get out there and make it happen.
Right. Now, how was it for you in writing on this project?
Well, I started writing probably 2 years ago for this project, and I had wrote a couple songs on my previous project. And so I knew at some point that I was going to get to the point where this new album, Think I'll Carry It On, would be all my music. And it took right about 2 years, maybe just a little bit over 2 years to get to that point. But that's the thing about the music. You can't force it. You got to let it come, and your inspirations. You never know where your inspiration for a song will come from. The strangest things happen to cause me to, hey, wow, it gives me an idea. But you would never know where it would come from. So I don't push it. I don't try to be in a big hurry when it comes to writing songs. I want the real sincerity to show in my music.
And I think that your audience is able to tell the difference as well, that they could tell that you have spent time with the song, that it wasn't, hey, you guys, we have a deadline to meet, let's hurry up and just, put something out there, as opposed to presenting with the passion and the love that you want to have in the music.
Very well said. A lot of folks ask me, on today's current country music, and I really have nothing bad to say. All I can say is that I think a lot of today's music is missing that emotion that really comes from a traditional country song. If you write from emotion, you know that the emotion that you're feeling when you write the song ultimately will touch someone else. I've wrote songs and performed them. I've had people tell me, oh my goodness, it's almost as if you wrote that song for me. But when you hear that and you've made that connection, your music is connecting with the listener at that point.
And it's so funny that you say that, because there are so many songs out there, and you're right, that you can tell that time was really spent on the song, that it wasn't just kind of thrown together. One song that comes to mind is God and Country Music by George Strait. It's one of those songs where I could just kind of listen to it over and over and over again. I kind of get goosebumps when I hear it, and it's just like, man, this was not thrown together in 5 minutes. That doesn't mean that they didn't write the song or anything like that, but you could just tell that time was spent with that. So I can really relate to what you're saying. It's so true. Now, like you said, with your song, or with this particular project, that you're trying to make sure that people don't forget about traditional country music. Have you found that as you are touring this great country of ours, that more and more people are being drawn back to country music, that they're remembering the roots of the sound?
Oh yeah, I think, and this is just an opinion. I got some ways to back it up, but I think the fact that modern country music has gone left in original country, have left its ways. It's really created a bunch of opportunities for me that maybe I wouldn't have had had it stayed traditional. But I'm in a way thankful that this has happened, because we're gaining fans and making connections all over the world now, just for the fact that people miss and they want to hear that traditional country music. And a country artist, country fan from the 60s up through the 90s, there's still those country fans there, and you can't fool them. You can't. They know what they know better. They know that today's music isn't country, and you can't fool those folks. So those are the folks that I'm interested with.
Yeah. I can't knock you on that. And it's like, for those again that may not be interested in country, it's like people will say that new stuff, that's not music. Whatever genre it is, that's not music. Put on this, and then it changes, and there really is a difference in those styles, and you're able to, I would say, keep listening until you find the song that you love. And when you find that song, you'll know exactly what we're talking about, and there's just something that kind of just hits you, and you go, yep, that's the one. That is the one. Well, I tell you what, Richard, I know that you are off to the next interview, and thank you so much for being able to stop by and spend some time with us this morning. I really and truly appreciate you stopping by. Could you remind our listening audience one last time, please, what is the title of your new project, and where can we get a copy?
The new album is called Think I'll Carry It On. And just go to richard-lynch-band.com. You can find all our information there, our show dates, our merchandise, our interviews, richard-lynch-band.com. And we sure thank you for being a part of your show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You know what I want to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want to get you fired up about music. My guest today is John-Vento. He's a music veteran who uses his music to inspire a new generation. So let me tell you a little bit more about John. He is an acclaimed and well-respected musician from Pittsburgh. His latest album, Love, Lust, and Other Wreckage, was released with MTS Records in January. And the first single, Rainbows and Lightning, has been all over the airplay charts and reached the iTunes Rock Chart Top 20. So get comfy, get cozy, because we are about to get started. Good morning, John. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am well. I just love music, so I'm so glad to have you on today. And I like that you say that you want to inspire the next or a new generation. Can you tell us a little bit more about what made you decide that now was the time for Love, Lust, and Other Wreckage?
Well, the genesis of the project was some struggles that I experienced about 2.5 years ago. I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and it kind of came out of the blue. I had no idea, but I was very blessed and very, very lucky that the doctors here in Pittsburgh were able to move quickly and remove my kidney. But, of course, that led to some other issues and some other struggles. And I kind of reflected on my life and realized at my advanced age, in my mid-50s, that I had screwed up some nice relationships and wasn't very successful in the arena of love. I had plenty of lust and wreckage that I'm not proud of. But so that was really the launching pad for the whole project, together with a co-writer and a friend named Bert Laubel, who was such a big part of the project.
I love it. Now, what is your favorite track on the album, and why?
Wow, that's a great question. There's 13 little children on there, and I love them all equally. But probably my favorite is a track called Baby Blues, because it was the first song that we wrote and the first song that we recorded, and it's very personal and it's about regret. So, I'd have to pick that as my favorite.
I love it how you said there's 13 little babies on there and you love them all equally. I love that. That's right, because, there's a lot that goes into that. I have a lot of artist friends, and, it is as grueling as people think to be that creative and to pour. The best songs are always the songs that you've poured your all into it, and the listener understands that, and they go on that journey with you. So I definitely understand. Now, how was it recording with David Granati and of the Granati brothers?
Well, David, he's a very passionate kind of guy. Plus, I could relate to him because we both have the same family and Italian heritage. So how is it recording with David? It's wild and woolly, and you better hold on tight. There's plenty of moments that the weak at heart would not be able to handle. But no, on a serious note, he's so talented. He's a great musician, a great guitar player, multi-instrumentalist, a wonderful producer. But I think most important is he pours his heart and soul into all his projects. Right. And he certainly did that for us on this one.
So I have to then ask the question of, did he share any stories from the day's opening for Van Halen?
Oh, my goodness. Of course he does. It isn't something like, to his credit, he doesn't walk around, and none of his brothers do either, and, say, hey, we toured with Van Halen and Jay Giles and 38 Special. They don't really do that. But if you ask a question, they have great stories. And, they're still close to this day with Eddie Van Halen and his brother, and they're very friendly with David Lee Roth to this day. Yep.
And, I find that in talking to artists in general is that there is just the respect level for someone who has put in the time and, they've paid their dues, and they're awesome, and that they're not only legends to members of the audience, but even within the industry, that you go, hey, hats off to that guy. If I can spend time with that guy or that gal, then of course let me listen to the stories, because the fun fact is that there's going to be a time where someone wants to sit and listen to your fun stories too. So I love
well
it. Thanks. I love that. Now, with the whole getting ready for the big day, when you are touring, when you are on stage, are there any things for that young budding artist out there that has a big day coming up perhaps this weekend? Do you have any suggestions for them, and how do they prepare and get ready for that moment?
Well, people ask me all the time, do you get nervous, when you're in front of especially a large audience or any performance? And the answer is, I only get nervous if I'm not prepared. So, my advice, not just to young artists, but to everybody, is do your homework and rehearse, and be prepared, and then there's nothing to really get nervous about, because you know that you've done the work in order to be successful. So I don't know if that's much wisdom. I'm sure you've heard it before. So I think it's just preparation and rehearsal. In music, it's really about repetition and grinding and rehearsing without losing the energy or without losing the edge. And that can be easily accomplished.
Now, is there a difference? And that is a great piece of advice. Just make sure that you're prepared, that you're ready. Don't slack off. You don't want to be a slacker in music either, and not just life in general, but with that as well. Now, is there a difference in getting ready to go in studio and being on stage, be it that it's in front of 2 people or, 2 million people? Is there a difference between stage and studio as far as prepping?
That's great. There's a significant difference. First of all, a live performance is an entirely different discipline than a recording process.
Okay.
A live performance is a moment in time that is gone within seconds, and minutes and hours. Of course, today with all the technology and the film and the cameras and the phones, much more of that is captured. However, live performance has a completely different energy to it.
Yeah.
It's more spontaneous. But in the studio, it's more methodical. And unless you're a multi-billionaire, you don't want to waste money in the studio.
Right.
So you have to go very prepared. And which frankly wasn't necessarily what we did on this project. This was a little different approach. I called it a design build from the beginning. We went in with sketches and ideas, and then together with David and Bert and Shirley Hawk and our team, we kind of molded those sketches in the studio. And that's not only a long, painful process, but that's an expensive process. For sure.
Wow. What a nugget of advice there. Yeah, and I could see the difference between the two. Now, John, it is almost time for us to go to break, but I want to make sure that we remind the listeners of the name of your album, where can they get a copy, and how do we follow you online?
Sure, thank you. The album is Love, Lust, and Other Wreckage. They can get it on my website, john-vento.com, and in all the other social media outlets and iTunes and all that stuff. And, we're on Spotify. I've got a Facebook page, John-Vento Music. I have a Instagram, John-Vento Music, and Twitter and all those things. So basically, they would just look up John-Vento Music and go from there.
Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can go to pick up your copy. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for a Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is John Vento, and he is a music veteran who inspires a new generation. I love it. Now, if you are like I am, you love a good song regardless of what genre it is. If it can get you fired up, then it's a great song. And that's what we want to do today, is remind you about really great music. Speaking of good music, John, your single is Rainbows and Lightning, and it is doing very well on the radio as well as the sales charts. Congratulations on that. I know that, it's awesome to know, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about your single, and how did you come up with that title?
Wow. Well, I could tell you a lot about it, but we don't have that much time. But the title actually came quite accidentally. I was at a writing session with Shirley Hawk, who is featured on this album as a female vocalist. And we basically drove into a thunderstorm, and it was really weird. And, here was all this thunder and all this rain. And then, of course, there was a rainbow that occurred shortly thereafter, and then next thing I know, we got lightning bolts that are bouncing off the rainbow. And I looked at her and said, boy, that's the epitome of a relationship. The rainbow's so beautiful and loving and fluffy, and everybody's happy. And then at any moment, a lightning bolt can come into the relationship and screw it all up. So that was the genesis for the title, and I give Shirley a lot of credit, because she came at it from a different perspective, and it was a song we struggled with. It had 3 different variations throughout the recording process, and it actually was put on the shelf that we weren't even going to do it. But we molded it, as I mentioned before, with our approach, and finished it up. It was one of the final songs that we did on the record.
Wow.
And when we sent out the demo to people that we really respected, it was the one that jumped out at them the most. So that's why we released it as a single and did our first video off of that track.
Now, your album is a soundtrack to a musical that's coming up. That's awesome as well. How did that happen?
Well, as we were nearing the end of the project, which the mixing started last May,
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously when you go into a thematic piece of work like this, where it's about relationships and the different aspects, we knew that we had a project with a common thread, and the working title was Follow Your Heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought the idea to a playwright friend of mine who's an established, prominent playwright named Amy Hartman, and presented the songs to her and my idea as the stories, and she said, I love the idea, I hate the title.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, then give me something better. And it took her about a week, and she came back with Love, Lust, and Other Wreckage, and she just jumped on the whole story of the struggles in relationships. And she basically then kind of took it from there, and the stage play will be this fall here in Pittsburgh at the Oaks Theater.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of music, how is the music scene in Pittsburgh?
Well, we have a great scene with original music, and it's really developing the young people. I give them a lot of credit. The younger artists, unlike my generation, I think most of us, not all, but most of us, when we started, did cover songs. You know, we played Rolling Stone songs and other people's music in order to play in clubs.
Mm-hmm.
The scene today is really vibrant, and it's really kind of underground and just filled with original music of all genres. We have a great rock scene. We have a great hip-hop scene. So things here in Pittsburgh are happening in a great way.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you say the name Pittsburgh, you really don't think of, oh, my goodness, I don't want to go there because I'm going to be bored. So you still think of Pittsburgh as one of the top places that on your list to visit. So for people that are really, really drawn to music, it's awesome to hear you say that there is definitely something to do there if you're into music. Now, what does considering we're Faith Talk Radio, I have to always try to ask the question of how has your faith played into your life when it comes to your music?
Well, I think that's a wonderful question, because I am a Christian, and I'm proud to say that. And if you listen to the album, it's very indirect, but you will hear plenty of spiritual statements and spiritual references. Well, in one song, Only Love Stays Alive, there's a line in the song, when the heavens collide and God takes a side, only love stays alive. That's kind of a direct statement about faith. However, love is faith. So when you think about happiness and love, it all comes from our Creator, our God. And I was so blessed that all of my collaborators on this album have strong spiritual faith. And there was no question that we wove that into the album. It is not by any means what we know as contemporary Christian music.
Right.
It's not. And I have some folks encouraging me to explore that, and I very well may in the near future. However, you know, the element of faith is woven throughout the entire project, from beginning to end.
Yeah. And it sounds like that it's pretty much how we live our day-to-day lives. We make certain decisions according to what we believe. We react. We understand. We promote. We retreat. We run. We go to. You know, all according to what we believe. And I could see how you've made that a part of the album. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, we always want people to pick up a copy of any product that we have from our website. But the great thing about being a musician is that you guys are on tour. Do you have any touring plans for 2019 or beyond?
Well, most of my live performances are in my region, my Western Pennsylvania region, even though recently we went to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, went to Central PA, and went to Cleveland. So yeah, I have really a couple great shows coming up. john-vento.com has all of our shows listed. I primarily with this music, I like to go to elements where it's a listening room or a listening discipline. So it's more of a concert setting than it is like a club kind of performance.
Gotcha. Now, if there is one nugget of advice that you could leave with anyone when just regarding music, be it that it is advice for being in studio or performing or getting your music out to the world, or just kind of making sure that you don't lose it in the process and you continue to move forward, what would that nugget of wisdom be?
It would be to be original and be selfish. In other words, selfish is not a good word in our society, and it's not a characteristic that any of us want to exude. However, when it comes to art and when it comes to your work, or in this case your music, you have to satisfy yourself first and foremost, and work hard at creating original music that's meaningful to you. And then if it's meaningful to you and you're blessed in some way, others will pick up on it. But the goal should not be to write and record for other people. It has to start with you. And then as you build an audience, then you can begin to expand and be able to connect with other people.
I love it. John, one last time, if you could please, can you remind everyone what is the name of your album, where can we get a copy, and how do we follow you online?
Thank you. Yes, Love, Lust, and Other Wreckage by john-vento, V-E-N-T-O. My website, john-vento.com, and you can find me on all the social media outlets like Facebook, Instagram, and all that under John-Vento Music. And I'm also on Spotify, iTunes, and those platforms.
All righty. John-Vento, thank you so much for being on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela today.
Thank you, Dr. Angela. God bless you.
And listeners, thank you as well for tuning in. And as always, may God continue to be with you. His grace and His mercy follow you. Until next time, everyone, be blessed in the Lord. Bye-bye.